Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for staying on for a little bit, just to talk about kind of upcoming Nova East. And what we're doing today is just kind of run through probably how it will unroll in terms of a schedule. And we're looking for some ideas on such things as a theme or on workshops or on presentations. And I think you know by now that we're going to be heading back to Smiley's, which is good, and they're going to let us have use of the shelter, which is very good. I think they've been storing gear in it, but they said they'd move the gear out because we've been good, faithful customers of the park for quite a while. So I don't know, guess you haven't had much chance to think about this, but we're interested in people's ideas for, as I said, a theme. Last year it was birds and stars, and there have been a variety of themes in the past.
Shooting down communication satellites.
Communication satellites. Well,
oh, you've got rockets. One thing, actually, to be serious, the laser pointers. I guess there's a new program now that are required. Is that program able to be instituted during the weekend? Like for others to, like anybody doing outreach, to be able to get their certificate for laser? Because I mean, even like, well, I know it again at APS, we're trying to point out stars between the streetlights. It's really hard without the laser. And
yeah, well, there's
program, because I know you had something online about a new course. I'm just wondering if that can be done during the weekend or whether it's something that takes a longer period of time.
Well, it's good that you bring it up because we can put that on as one of the things we could do on the weekend. So,
and just as an FYI, Kingston Center did do that at one of their star parties, so that everybody at the star party got their certificate that weekend.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's something we certainly can do, Paul.
Yeah, because I mean, especially for those doing, it'd be nice to have a certificate to say when the cop taps you on the shoulder to arrest you. No, here's my certificate. I can use this. But pointing at an airplane.
yeah, well, you still have to stay well away from airports and things. You know the drill. I know.
Would it even be worth having a like one of those meetings to like establish people to get their certificate?
Yeah, we've been talking about that.
Oh, yes, so the thought is that maybe at Nova East, that's a program that we could run so that people could get, do the little course and get signed up for their certificate.
No. Yeah, sorry, I just stepped away for about 15 minutes there, so.
Oh, that's all right.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, but
another thing about the what do you call it? ACE Amateur Astronomer Program. Yeah. The ACE Amateur Astronomer Program. Somebody said that Dave had worked one out for the moon. Did he develop one for the
yes. At the International Observe the Moon Night out at SCO, he did develop one. It was a sort of like a same sort of premise as what you had, Tony. We had both of them out there. Yes, he did develop one. So
I just like maybe have a challenge during the weekend and have those. Is there a third type of program, like something for Dark Nebula?
well, this is what we're talking about here today, Paul. You seem to have lots of ideas. That's great.
Something here, looking at that program. So I have the certificate now. I've done the course, but I need a backup person.
Yep.
To watch for aircraft and all that. Yeah. But also, I would like the center to provide the laser pointer. I think the center should invest in some laser pointers so that when we go out, we have the appropriate laser pointer that we can use from the center.
Yeah, well, we have usually borrowed one from, if you will, in-house, from from one of the members. That's
Yeah, I know.
where they've usually come from.
Center. Buying one member of.
Well, that's fine. They're not that expensive. You know, and probably.
Yeah.
I think I have two.
Anyway.
Anyway,
Said-
no, yeah, I know. No, so that's fine. We'll make note of that. As you know, it's not supposed to be any more than 5 milliwatts.
Not supposed to be.
That's right.
Yeah, but you can't.
Okay.
Unless you're
I believe
standing beside the person with the laser, that doesn't work in the maritime. Too much moisture in here, can't see very much with that.
We know, Paul.
With the labeling on them as.
Now, the hundred milliwatt that guy had there at Nova East that year for his,
Oh, heavens.
that was like.
Yeah.
you know, people hit the moon with that.
No, we'll look at see about, I guess, about getting some laser pointers.
Can I use my torch?
Yes.
It's not laser.
Yeah, but at Keji, you know, I was told not to use my torch, so I'm just saying, can I use like Nova East?
At us, let's put it this way, Nova East traditionally has had a period of time when laser pointers can no longer be used at that point of the, I think it's 10 o'clock at
Right.
night.
Yeah,
To allow for the astro imagers.
That's right.
They would hold the same thing with the torch.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so yeah.
Okay, we're all set then.
Yeah, no, there's,
And legally, I still need a spotter even with the torch.
you
right?
do. I don't think so.
Says any light that's pointed to the sky has to be blah, 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 blah. Okay.
We have backup for you, Tony.
If you're not.
Well, Tony, if need be, I'll be your backup.
Okay,
I've been your backup before. So,
yeah, in either case, sure, works for me.
yes,
One of the things you and I raised the last couple of days talking to you, Chris, was there's a focus now on citizen science. So maybe we could have a session on what it is and how members can get involved.
Okay.
Um,
do we know somebody who's knows about it? Like,
Jeremy Cousin, he's involved, like I said earlier, with the Aurora group. So I mean, if he's able to at least describe what citizen science is about and maybe suggest some sort of activity for the center that we could do that weekend even to get started.
other than Michael, is there anybody with the AAVOS?
AAVSO.
Yeah, cause I was just thinking I'm still getting a lot of emails about, what's the one that's supposed to go supernova?
Yeah.
Going Boreal. So that's gonna be something that'll be up the whole night, accessible. But if someone could talk about that for citizen science, and I mean, if we get people at Nova East, it'd be a good way to get people geared up to help out with that. But we should have someone that could talk about that specific one as well. I mean, the Aurora is nice, but I mean, that, the supernova one was possible for.
Yeah. I think the, excuse me, the citizen science is also, there's lots of different citizen science programs. And the idea was, I think, was to really understand how those programs operate. Because I think I'm aware of at least about half a dozen of those.
Rather than having specific.
Well, no, it could be specific, but it also gives you an idea of what they're about. And you know, we could probably list the ones that we're, you know, kind of aware of in case someone wants to follow up on it.
Talked about so far, I hear a bit of a theme. That is almost everything we talked about so far, we tied back to visual astronomy. Whether it's observing dark nebulas, objects.
Yep.
Or the like, the visual we're doing with the public outreach. Citizen science, whether it's variable stars. Aurora.
So we're going to say the eyes are best.
Well, you know, your best the visual theme to
Yep.
talk. So often we design or try to pick talks and stuff around theme. So I'm just
No,
saying, maybe we're.
I agree, and I mean,
Yeah.
and we've been Certainly in the last couple of years, we've been keen about promoting that at SCO in terms of visual astronomy. I mean, I was thinking up on the 22nd and 23rd of August, Neptune and Uranus are in the sky. And, one can, one of the things is trying to encourage kind of new to astronomy people is about finding things is one. But I remember years back when Dave Chapman found, I think it was Neptune, because I didn't think you could find Neptune, right? I mean, I even understand Pluto's possible, but anyway, so to be able to see Neptune and Uranus would give you a good start into what's possible.
A
So
few years ago, Roy Bishop got us to find Jupiter naked eye in the daytime. And Venus, Jupiter and Venus. Well, I mean, it was just at dusk. I mean, the sun would set,
Yeah.
but it was before it got dark enough for anything else. But he had Jupiter most of the afternoon in his telescope, but he was showing us how to find it visually.
Mhm.
And I mean, if there's some targets like that, planetary targets that we could work on for people to track down.
yeah, well, all of the planets are in the sky that night, except one of them, I think, rises at 4 a.m. So, I mean, there is an opportunity to, have a look at all of them.
At school about 4 AM.
If I can add, I did see Pluto 4 years ago with Dave Chapman. He pointed it out to us at the 16-inch at St. Croix.
Yeah,
And
I think,
it was just a dot.
yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I had a little look to see what was going on that night. I think Pluto sets pretty soon after dark. So it probably, if it's close to the horizon, it's probably a difficult target. But, there's 6 other planets.
Yep.
I shouldn't say that. There are 6 planets. Stuck in the past.
I just know that for several years, I had a talk that I gave to the public about how to observe, how to use a telescope to observe,
Yep.
and then what to look for in that night sky. Before the sky tour. And I'd only get like 6 or 7 people there, and we eventually gave it up, but. In your theme about observing, I think if I was going to design it, I would say, if we're going to talk about, I've seen so many people walk up to a telescope and say, what's this? And what am I supposed to do with it? How do I focus it and everything else? And this is what I was doing beforehand, was showing people how to walk up to a telescope, look in the eyepiece, look at it, and then tell them about something about the things they're going to see out in the field.
We could have the kids make the eye patches to be pirates at night so they can keep their eyes open when they look through the telescope. Because that worked at APS for about 6 people. I said, look, be a pirate, keep both eyes up and cover one eye. And they, all of a sudden they were able to focus on what they were looking at. So that could be a youth or afternoon activity. We could make our own eye, they can make their own eye patches for looking through telescope. Just something fun to encourage people to think about how to observe. Yeah, and it could work into a talk as well about.
Well, there's not, when you look at the schedule, there wouldn't be room to fit it in. In the old days there was, but there wouldn't be now.
We could fit it in during the afternoon, we have the solar observing. They still have to use one eye to see the solar through the telescopes.
That would be a more public oriented
Yes.
talk.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying. What were you suggesting then?
Well, no, I'm thinking that's good. But I think we have to separate it from talks that are geared more to the astronomers that are there.
Yeah.
When I'm thinking observing astronomy wise, I'm thinking like policy about Aurora Borealis to have a presentation on how to visually observe a variable star with naked eye binoculars, which is a very simple thing. And there's lots of it we've done to teach people about variable star observing and making those observations. So it's something that astronomers are more probably interested than the public. But it would be, the same way whether we do a talk on meteors. I know we missed the Perseus, but there's lots of meteor showers every year. How do you observe meteors? And we all talk about, you go up, you lay in the blanket under the stars and watch. But how do you do it in a way that actually produces data that you can submit to the IMO that they can use in their database? So that's another citizen science visual astronomy thing.
Michael said last year, there's a new meteor shower that's appeared in the last couple of years in Aries. Is it in Aries?
Yeah.
And right now, it's increasing by about 4 or 5 meteorites a year. And they're trying to get enough data to try to find out if they can track where which comet is issuing. But it just appeared, it was never recorded before. But Michael mentioned that online here last year. But something like that for the citizen science, for lean towards meters, something that somebody could work to develop. The data they need to try to get an orbital.
Yeah, I would think we would want whatever that activity was to be happening while we were at SCO, right? Rather than just, because it might, I don't know what the timing is for that. Tony McGrath has suggested that maybe we would have a little ticket that you could then get punched as you looked at planets or double stars or nebula, or you saw Neptune or Uranus or something. So you could have a little list. Now it seemed to me we did that once before where we had some challenges. I don't know if Dave Chapman had started that. Can't remember now.
Public. Thing for the public coming into.
Well, it could be public or it could be new people. I mean, who
Competition.
I think so, but you know, my memory's not that good anymore. But I mean, I'd be you know, I think seeing Uranus and Neptune in one evening and at least probably 5 other planets would be not a bad night. So those are good. Those are all good kind of observing things. I mean, we'd have to put it together so that it in a, you know, some kind of a logical order but no, I mean, I like the idea of taking the theme as being kind of visual astronomy. I mean, sometimes we do it about some.
The citizen science.
And this, yeah.
Going to look at stuff, but what can you go look at without having the $5,000 of CCD equipment and scopes and stuff to do research? What can you do with binoculars or a small telescope and just your eye?
Yep.
That is still citizens.
Yeah, you're looking with intent or with a purpose. Yeah. No. Okay.
The reiterating the various challenges that RASC has that are observing. You know, talking about those programs might be helpful.
That could be part of it too. This is we're in the sky by doing the EU and the Messier, right? What are those programs? What do they entail? How do you do them? How do you log your observations?
Because they're the things that motivate me to go out and observe, frankly.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna get another certificate. Oh boy, here I go.
Well, you guys when you started with the club, you guys had the mini Messier here in
Yeah.
Halifax, and that has evolved into ECU.
Yeah.
But the mini Messier was something that, oh, this is a good way to check, because it was 4 or 5 objects over each season. And I think over 20 objects.
I think
it
you
was.
needed 20 of the
Yeah.
40.
But it was something I was able to do, and because at the time, all I had was a pair of binoculars.
Yeah.
And I was able to get that, but it got me out and learning how to observe. But I think the mini Messier developed into the ECU program. So, but there again, it's something that was sort of promoted here when I first joined.
Camels.
All right. Well, that's.
So I have a question regarding, if we do a session on regarding certificates. Are we just looking at like observe the moon binocular telescope in the ETU, or do you want to describe the whole? Like Isabel Williamson, the NGCs, et cetera?
Or are we gonna direct those programs to the general public or to the group like the club?
Well,
Mind, as far as Nova East is concerned, anybody that might attend any one of our sessions. Right, even if it's not geared for them per se. So if they're interested in that sort of thing, especially if we get them into one of these activities. And then explain about the certificates, but ETU, anybody can do, member or not. The others require membership. They can do the programs, they just won't get the certificate.
But like the ACE observing both the lunar and the night sky,
Yeah.
those 2 programs anybody could get because it's that
It's right
evening
there, exactly,
and that, so.
exactly.
And that's something that Smiley's may be able to promote too for us, that those.
They are very good at that.
Come get an astronomy certificate.
Yeah.
I mean, the only the thing is, the weekend is essentially, is in some ways largely for the center, because we see this as kind of a social event and an opportunity to do some observing. And we've always welcomed members of the public to attend and be involved with things. I mean, Tony, you had some ace amateur astronomers there last Nova East, on the last, a few people on the last evening. So, you know, so we're always happy to do that, but I wouldn't base the whole weekend around others who may or may not show up, right? So, but I would.
I teach my course, observing course of scans. I mean, the whole focus is on observing. And part of that is that they have to learn the sky and asterisms and star hopping and all that stuff. But I think for the crowd that's here, that's all amateurs, not amateur stuff, but small, we all know how to do that. So I don't think that would get a great.
Yeah, new observers, yeah.
To be fair, being a non-astro imager, I'm gonna make a statement. I know the astro imagers in the room and elsewhere will hit me over the head for saying this. But how many astro imagers actually know what they're looking at? Where it is in the sky? But yeah, I'm looking at the crowd nebula. Where is it? I don't know. It's up there.
Well, at the GA, we had to physically show 18 individuals that were doing research, but did not know where their star was or their object that they were looking at. We showed at the observatory here,
So
18 of the scientists that came to the GA, we had to show them where, because they asked, like, where's my stuff? Because they push a button on a computer. Some telescope in the southern hemisphere somewhere takes a picture. I mean, they didn't even know where their own object they were studying was.
Yeah.
In-
So, I mean, I think it's something that everybody can learn. Because if for some reason they're in a site where they don't have their telescope, but they've got their binoculars, at least they'll be able to figure out where they are.
In past years, we've usually had some kind of a presentation that was kind of targeted towards new observers, just to introduce them to something or some aspect. Or in some cases, we've had members who've just completed one of their certificates, and they were kind of working their way in, and they talked about their journey of going through. And I think so I think having something for new observers of some kind, I think is probably a good idea.
The NGC finest is a bit of a stretch.
Mm.
So that might be of interest to a lot of observers who haven't really gone there yet. Why are you laughing, Paul?
I'm just saying that the Deep Sky Challenge is really a stretch.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, well, at the same time, as much as there could be something for new observers, there could be something to try and challenge old observers too, or those who are getting older. So, yeah, experienced observers. Yeah,
We could try the Herschels if we get a couple more 25-inch scopes on the field.
yeah. Well,
Is wasn't Mark doing some of his Herschels with his little tiny 25-inch?
yeah.
You can do Herschels with small telescope.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you had said over 60.
The Herschel 400, you can do it at 12 or 15.
Oh, you can't. Okay, I didn't think you'd get him with that small.
Yeah, the H400, you can do it at 12 or 15. Going back to watching the recording from the other night, so I wasn't able to attend. We have that much time to block everything.
Just so people know, and you as well, Paul, what this is literally is last year's agenda with all the detail out.
Maximum, this is the time we have.
Yep.
Max. So going back to that discussion the other night as to what Nova East is and what we want it to be. How much outreach in the park do we want? Which is right where Tony's amateur comes in, that's the outreach. And how much inreach do we want? How many of those talks do we really want to hear towards great beginners who might have walked out the field from the park? And ourselves internal. And that's that, back to that. Is it just us there for a social thing and doing outreach, or are we there for a social thing but also inreach? How much do we want to teach ourselves? And going back to the visual observing that Paul was mentioning, we're talking about like meteor showers, basic variable stars, like our Borealis, which is popular right now, because we expect it to pop anytime. Those are things that a lot of us can do with what we have for equipment internal. If public come up to a talk about Arcona Borealis, when that pops, it's a second magnitude start. If they know where the northern crown is in the sky, get that much out of the talk that, hey, when I hear the news that this star went nova, I know where that, I know what that crown looks like. If I go and look and I see that crown's not a crown because it's got an extra star below it, then I've seen it. So public could get something out of that too. But inReach wise, we're teaching us one about that particular star, but about star observing. How much of that we want to do, how much outreach we want to do in talks is really, I think, is the big question. Not so much what those talks are, but what's the balance we're looking for? And that's what I seem to think the discussion the other night seemed to go a lot around is are we doing too much? Are we doing too little? What do we want to do?
Well, we spoke about that in the past. Sometimes we had filled the weekend, and that was a bit too much, frankly, I think. And so we backed off.
So a lot of our hardcore volunteers are flat out 2 weekends in a row.
Yeah.
And that's stretching us thin.
But in terms of outreach, so we have done, you know, and several people have participated in doing a sky tour in the evening.
Yep.
As right. There's the touring the solar system, right, which Paul started. What else did we have? Seems to me there's. I beg your pardon?
Binocular table.
There was Tony's binocular table, which is
Oh, it's the ASAC.
Yeah,
It's done with the
yeah.
binocular tape.
Yeah.
So the question is that enough outreach? And if so, that leaves the talks to be in.
I would, I mean, that's what, 5 hours or something like that of time. I mean, it's quite that's so,
Wise, we only need to worry about what caters to.
no,
Astronomy.
well, as we know, some difficult topics can actually be quite interesting. I mean, Roy Bishop's taken us down some crazy roads, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but we used to bring in a speaker from somewhere else
Every couple of years.
every while. You know, that was always interesting to me. Oh, my,
Well, no,
John Dobson's here today, you know.
Yeah, especially watching them graze across the lawn.
One of the suggestions that came out of the chat was inviting the hosts of there were
So
two,
that's the host.
What, Quirks and Corks?
The host.
No. sorry?
Sunday Night Astronomy Show guys,
Yes,
Kerwin and can't think of the other guy's names now.
there was somebody else too. There were two podcasts anyway.
Yeah.
That they suggested, because one of the guys is from the Maritimes.
I can't remember who that one is.
Where is it?
No, the Sunday Night Astronomy Show is out of the Brunswick, and it's 3 of them who put that on.
Yeah, but one of the guys on the other one, where did I put it? Oh, the actual astronomy.
Oh,
One of those guys is from the Maritimes.
Isn't he from Quebec, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there's two different types of astronomy related podcasts that we might be able to invite speakers
And
from.
someone from PI was a podcast or something.
so this gets into having kind of a featured or keynote speaker. And in the past, we've sometimes brought them from a distance. And the thing that we have to be careful about is the cost of that. And the cost of airline tickets has gone up considerably. And we've usually looked after their accommodation and meals and things. And so, you know, so it's a bit expensive. So it has to be, you know, kind of planned well and worthwhile.
I feel that it doesn't necessarily, I mean, I'm great if someone comes in and blah, 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 blah. But we've got 2 universities here that have profs that do research, and some of them that have graduate students who are doing cool stuff. And might be worth keeping that in mind and exploring what might be possible.
And what resources there may be here too. Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't have those huge expenses. And I'm sure they have some really interesting things to talk about.
Yeah, because National no longer provides funding like they did.
Yeah.
Don't have
Yeah.
funding.
that and a lot of other things.
Yeah, for now.
Zoom's taking over. Oh, just do this.
But I mean, with respect to those podcast guys, because they have family and friends here, we might be able to reduce some of our costs. Like, thanks for coming to visit some family and friends.
Do we have Zoom
That's the
capabilities?
No.
Not there.
We do at Kenji though, don't we, at the what? Mention
Mary McKay,
Mayor McKenna's lodge, is there?
that's the only place you can
Oh, that's. the only-
reliably,
Yeah.
Center. Yeah. And, yeah,
Oh, yeah, yes.
but you don't have a place for congregation there. Where is,
I don't know whether the free is here or not.
or is that where the, right, that's where we had.
Dave and Cassie.
Yeah, okay, yeah, sorry, I had the wrong building.
We used it before, but during COVID, they used it as a warehouse like everybody else did. Yeah. Last year, it still wasn't available.
I mean, certainly you can have a virtual presentation, you know, from a distance. It's not quite the same. I mean, because it's something, a virtual presentation works well in this room. You know, and it would be nice to have somebody that was kind of hands-on. Actually, speaking of hands-on, are there any kind of workshops that we might like to have? I mean, we've done a lot of different things from, we've done solar filters for binoculars and cameras and telescopes. We've done bars. We did
Sketching,
we've done sketching. We've done
how to make solar filters.
solar filters, and I think Dave Chapman did
He did lunar sketching
do sundials maybe.
and sundials, yeah,
He also did cleaning mirrors.
he did.
So there,
Now, that was something, I wonder, if, Dave, on the discussion this recently, or somewhere, published an article about sundial and how to, he was showing how to make one.
yes, it was. It was a particular aspect. I think I'm not sure if that's going to be in the journal or something.
It
But-
is,
But there are more sort of friendlier and probably something that you could take home a little more easily than that are as possible. I mean, that's something I can feel Dave out and see if there's if he has any interest in that.
Something that did come up at the APS event was collimation. How to collimate a telescope.
Yeah, we have done that we did do that in the past. It was a number of years ago.
Yep.
And that's, I mean, we're talking, talking about reflector telescopes.
Yep.
That certainly is a possibility. It's one of those useful skills, right? So that's, God knows there's lots of experience that's on the hill when we go. Tony?
I'm gonna admit something here. I'm working on, like, we have all these observing certificates, let's say.
Yep.
And I started working on an idea about recreating the history and development of observing. So going back like 2,000 years. And this would be a project like an observing certificate, but you have to do all these experiments and everything else. One of them is how to measure the diameter and circumference of the Earth by just hanging a stick down and measuring the size of the shadow. And it just seems to me maybe that and one or two other little things like that might be a fun task to do during Nova Easter as a challenge with people. Not too sure where I'm going from there, but does anyone know how to do that here?
You need two locations that are significant distances apart.
Correct. But with modern technology today, we don't have to wait for
Somebody to walk the distance.
So I forget another name. Yeah, I mean, you can replicate that at any sunny day. Anyway, just a thought. I could send you some ideas if you like. I'm working on it now. But I thought that, you know, scans provide you with all these opportunities to observe. And I said, yeah, we could be doing other things than observing. And so I started working on this.
Well, there are certainly, there's some fundamental,
It could be my guinea pigs.
there's some fundamental skills. I mean, you know, how did the ancients measure the angles and as you say, for
I think it'd
determining
be
the
cool
circumference of the
if
earth.
we could all learn how to measure the diameter of the earth with a stick. Right? And prove to those people that think the world is flat that it isn't.
I don't think you're going to win that argument.
No,
I
probably won't.
I don't think they're negotiable.
Let me get back to you on that.
Yeah.
Look, I want to talk about something else. It says up there, ace amateur astronomer presenter. What I would like is somebody else to do that, who knows the night sky. And other than myself, I'm happy to stand there, be the wing person. But we need to get other people. I mean, I could die tomorrow, then who's going to do it? We need to get more people doing this sort of thing in this crowd. Anyway.
Okay, so you're saying this
So that's
is an
the
opportunity for you to have kind of an apprentice, or you would train somebody prior to this and
Oh, I can spend time with them training. We can do a dry run through and everything else. But, yeah,
okay.
I mean, I'll make it as least scary as possible.
Or you could incorporate that with the laser training course. Have people learn how to do that program as well. Because
Yes,
the laser pointer.
that.
The laser pointer course is, that's a book course.
Oh,
That's a
okay.
desk. It's something you do at your desk kind of thing. There might be a presentation that you look at, but
So
it's
bring
not
more
in the
extension
stuff.
cord.
No, other than don't point it at anything. So. Okay, so Tony's interested in the fundamental experiments of astronomy and science.
Look, I'll get back to you that. We'll talk about a couple of experiments and then we can, maybe that's something we can do. And I'm talking about everyone that's in this room, but not necessarily the public. I'm talking about that people might be interested in doing these things.
Well,
Maybe not.
I see us actually as it's the members of the center, is that they're the people that are involved and they're our audience, if you will, or participants. And if the public are welcome to join in.
Yeah.
But we can't rely on saying, well, we're gonna, you know, get all these courses ready for them, because
Well, it gives me an incentive to get this new program going.
so in the past, most of you have been to Nova East in the recent past, and so you know the kind of the drill in terms of registration, and you know, we go in and register and set up, and then we usually on either the Friday night or the Saturday night we would have our main talk. You know, there might be a keynote speaker, and then there are also a couple of opportunities. So we have one there on Friday at 8 o'clock for the presenter, and
That's it.
that's it. That was right. We were going to do one thing on Friday.
Yeah.
And then you get into a sky tour, lunar observing, potentially the asameter.
Yeah, and the public observing there from what, 10:45
To 11,
11:30.
11:30.
There's no leadership required there. That is just the public being able to go out into the observing field and talk to people that have their scopes on. So there's no volunteers required per se. So the only two formalized programs would be the public sky tour and the ace amateur. Last year we had the public lunar observing. But we have to look at the lunar schedule. Whether or not the moon.
Yeah, it's-
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really just, I think it's a brand new moon. I
Yeah.
think.
And
Yeah.
It's just a sliver.
So we can chop that from the schedule.
I think so, because
Awesome.
it's new on the 24th, so,
Ain't gonna happen.
yeah.
Well, how many times does the NOAA satellite take a picture of the moon? They're showing 4 or 5 a day now on space weather. apparently it's showing the, like, it showed the crescent and the earthshine amazingly through the new camera on the NOAA satellite that they're starting to use for solar observing. I guess the way they got it rigged, you can actually see the moon crossing the sky and was just a crescent.
We won't have Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So, we're stuck with the real thing. We're still keen, at least I'm still keen on having the astronomers breakfast. Any dissenters here? No, I didn't think so. All the day in the field telescope tours, solar observing, that's, we've usually got a couple of people have usually set up their solar scopes to have a look. And we usually have a look, and sometimes we have members of the public walk the solar system. That was something you started, Paul. That's usually been we usually had a number of people wanting to do that. We could, in terms of activities, we could have a swap table or free market or something. Done a bit of that in the past. And then in the afternoon on Saturday, we would have, there's a talk or a workshop. So that could be one of the activities maybe we've talked about so far. Free time, group photos. We've gone to a NOAA hosted dinner, so we're happy to eat together, but the thought was not to be lugging barbecues and stuff down. We've done that in the past. It's a fair amount of work to do that. And we've been trying to keep it simple and easier on the volunteers. Lunar observing, let's see, what else we got? Yeah, we'll have to delete that. Door prizes, those have always been well received. Observing certificates and awards, I don't know, there may be some this year, I'm not aware.
Typically what that is, if there is any new to award yet.
They would be presented, yep.
At Nova East, we traditionally cite who has received certificates since the last Nova East. That way they get the recognition.
Yep. We had a public talk at 8 o'clock p.m. on Saturday, so that may be, like, if you will, we have a keynote speaker, because sometimes people can't get there for Friday night. Yeah. Right. So Saturday night may be better for whoever is the headliner, if you will, might be good for them. And then we cycle into Sky Tour and doing some observing. And then on Sunday, astronomers breakfast again, of course, and then the Sherman-Williams walk, which can be about birding. Pat Kelly led us around the woods up in Blomidon last year, which was very interesting. There weren't a lot of birds, but he sure knew a lot about plants and trees. So it was good. I enjoyed that. So that's kind of the template that we have used in recent years. It hasn't changed too much in the last I don't know, about 5 or 6 years. There was some holes in
Those 5 or 6 years.
yeah, well, but anyway.
Yeah, and one of the suggestions that came out of the discussion from Kingston is that they have a local coffee roastery that they invite to the Star Party. They provide their coffee to them in the morning and also provide their product for sale on site to the participants. And they suggested contacting local farmers markets for the fruit. I mean, it is going to be the latter part of August. There will be some fruit available.
Yeah, rather than us just making a run to Costco and throwing oranges, bananas in a bag, that maybe we would try and promote local. This might be a good year for that. And as you say, if getting local coffee, and maybe it can come brewed or not. We'll see.
We have 2 big coffee brewers. I've got one in my basement from Stone. There's still one at Stone. So we got the 2 of them, and they
make big urns.
Quite a few.
So does anybody's in terms of just the general layout of the weekend, just for a schedule, is that more or less okay? Or does anybody have any ideas or objections or suggestions?
Do we know the configuration of Smiley's? Because I guess there was a lot of reconstruction that needed to be done after the flooding.
I don't think the flood impacted.
Yeah, Cherry Hill was not impacted, so we're good with the hill in that area.
Yeah, we found out last summer, sort of midsummer, that, you know, we could come back.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't have the shelter for us. At that point, we had committed to Bloomington. And so the field was available.
So the schedule seems to go over well. This seems to work. It's a nice.
I think it works quite well. I mean, one of the things that was talked about when we were talking about with the Kingston group was about bringing in, promoting it and to others and seeing if we could bring interest to others in coming to the event. And then you get into, well, how, you know, how much effort do you want to put into that? And how many people would you like to come?
Well, yeah, there's a two-edged sword there. If you're gonna ask people to travel some distance to show up, you need to be able to present something to make their time and effort worthwhile.
Yeah.
And that changes a bit from a casual social event for a local batch of astronomers in sort of Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI.
Yeah.
One of the suggestions that Kingston had though was, if we want to promote the Star Party on the weekend of August 22 to 24, what other events, non-astronomy related, essentially, are in the area that would attract us? Hey, if you come here for this,
Yeah,
then we've got either for the 10 days,
adjacent
we've got
and
this,
secondary
we've got all
draws.
sorts of things in the area that you can come see.
Well, we had the title board there a couple times, Roy.
And
To organize the,
That wouldn't be us. We're talking about them being able to see things that are external to us and not organized by us whatsoever.
Yeah, so like 3 days of whining and dining in Wolfville.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sort of idea, you know, so.
I'm in.
so I think those are good things to, you know, to promote. But then again, how much effort do we want to go to kind of be kind of a travel agent or find out what the times are and whether or not they've still got
I'll
tickets? Or,
give you a copy of the Nova Scotia Doers and Dreamers, and if somebody's willing to go through it and list a few things.
You don't publish it.
It's online,
Is it online?
I believe so.
but again, it's just a little bit more time, and that was one of the things we were being cautious about, was not, you know, overburdening ourselves with activities. One of the things.
The efforts to promote it beyond our center to see growth will be very difficult. Reason to say that is the weekend you pick for Nova East, you're competing with Starfest, probably competing with Stellafane, probably competing with one or two others that are in Ontario or the Northeast. So beyond the Maritimes, it's very difficult to get those folks to come east when they have the big ones to go to. Yeah. Even Maritimes now. New Brunswick for the last handful or more of years holds a spring and fall event at Koochbakquak National Park, a fall event at Fundy National Park, an August event at Mount Carlton Provincial Park. 4 star parks out of that one center. Back in our heyday, when we had those 70+ people coming to Nova East in the early 2000s, late 2000s, before the 2010 time, when we had John Dobson, David Levy, and the folk, we were drawing a lot of people from the country. We were doing the solar filter shops, we were bringing John Dobson, we were bringing David Levy, those folks were coming down. They were doing Mount Carlton and maybe Fundy. Now they're doing 4. You're not going to get them to come without a big draw. So I don't think the potential for that growth externally is there like it used to be. I think we need to think more internally in the center as far as how we foster getting our own members come back up to Nova East.
Right.
But we do have astronomy clubs at Dell and Smear. Might be.
But those students aren't always there in August.
I know.
So the chances of drawing them in the summer, whether it's one moving back to school or not even near the school, are going to be slim as well. Nor do they have the resources probably. Come to Smiley's to go camping, when their students at university in a dorm.
Well, they're hotels.
The students,
I know.
right? Like, I don't see the growth there. Through those avenues for the amount of effort we would put into it.
Well, and the other thing, maybe we just, at least for the next year or two, we could moderate what we mean when we talk about growth.
Right.
And if we just try and boost the number of people coming to Nova East, regardless of where they're from, but even locally, right? So, yeah, okay, we had some bad weather last year and it was on the tail of a couple of years of cancellations. We didn't have a great turnout. But if we could shoot for twice as many people or whatever, you know, like get 50 registrants or 40, I don't even know what a good number would be, but just to increase the number of people locally, regionally showing up to Nova East, that in itself for the next year or two might be a laudable objective in terms of growth.
I think so, and also to strengthen the relationships within the center and to reinforce, you know, the membership, you know, attending and doing things. I mean, that was one of the things, I think, Judy, when you were first talking about this, Judy was saying, what is it that we could do or offer that would make people want to come?
Right.
I mean, and it's, I'm not worried about somebody down in Boston.
I think we had the peak year was Dotson, because I believe, if I remember correctly, we had 47 scopes on the field that year.
Yeah.
That was the biggest I'd see.
Well, yeah, we
And
had
on
like
average, it was 20.
75 or 80 registrants, and each, you know, there were a number of people who were registered would bring a spouse and or maybe a child, but we had like 115 people in the batch, and yeah, 45 scopes.
That was our best.
But that's also, you know, if you go back, that's also when we had 200 members in the club,
You know,
Right.
we used to get a room like this, we'd get 40, 50 people for a meeting. And so different days is my point. And
We did prior to Zoom.
sorry,
We did prior to Zoom, now Zoom takes away from. the-
Yeah.
Without getting participation, it's just
Yeah.
on Zoom.
oh, fair enough, yeah. See, when you're sitting here, you're not aware of how many people are on. So.
yeah, I've talked to people at other organizations too that are running the same situation. They have very tiny numbers show up at the physical meeting, and most people are on the Zoom. Well, they're also seeing the same factor in external situations. How many did we get at APS there the other night? Was it less than 50?
No,
Or was it more?
I don't think it was more, but it was close, I think.
Because we've had a couple of the APS things, we've had over 100 people there. So I'm just wondering if it's just the culture is so used to Zoom now that they're not thinking of actually physically going to an event.
Yeah.
And I think that's what one thing we got to try to overcome as well.
But, and that's just it though, is, you know, just at least for the next couple of years, just try and increase our numbers to Nova East, just attract local people to come out and spend the weekend. Do a bit of observing, do some socialization, maybe participate in a few workshops, and maybe volunteer and provide some expertise, because everybody has something. And you know, and if we find that we can do that easily in the next couple of years, then maybe we can look at larger objectives, but maybe not.
Could you send me the dates for this? Other information so I can tell my class and invite them to come to Nova East?
It's on our website.
It's all there now.
It's in the handbook.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's in the handbook. Yeah, we discovered that, it was in the handbook, yeah.
Website did not up to date, but
But
the
the
dates
dates
are
are-
correct.
Yes, correct. Listen, before I go, I want to thank the committee for doing all this. Seriously,
That piece of paper we gave you,
yeah,
the dates are right there, August 22.
okay, I've got it in my pocket. Great, thanks very much.
Thanks, Tony.
So just correct me if I'm wrong, but looking at what we're going to try and do here in August of this year, just trying to fill in some of the things. What we would like to find is perhaps a keynote speaker and a secondary speaker for the evenings and a couple of workshop speakers. Does that sort
Yeah.
of articulate a task that,
At least one, that's it. We only have one workshop listed there.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah,
old
but it-
program.
And that's, yeah, I think,
That's the old one.
I would agree.
That's the old schedule. We can tweak that.
Yeah, no, I would think like, 2 workshops and 2 presentations or, something in that line. That's
Yeah.
fine. It's just not, we're not gonna fill the day, but at the same time, we have a few things to do.
right, yeah,
So, I mean, we've had a few ideas that have come forward today for doing things. And I guess maybe, I think, I'm sure all of you here have our emails. Maybe you could think about, yeah, I'd like to, a presentation about this would be cool, something like that. So if you wanted to suggest something further, we'd be happy to receive any ideas.
Would it be worthwhile to get Cindy Day to promote Novi's for us? Because she promotes our other activity. The Weather Girl.
is she still working?
No, I think she retired this year, but there's still, because didn't Dave do a interview with the?
Posts on Facebook once in a while.
Okay, I don't watch TV then.
No, I'm just wondering, because I mean, Cindy Day was a really big supporter of our club. So far as astronomical events, she always promoted events like sidewalk downtown and other things like that. But I'm just wondering if we talk to the weather people that promote astronomy events, if they might want to promote Move East. I'm just thinking of bringing people in, showing interest. There again, we probably have to have a designated keynote to draw to.
Well, you're getting back into that. If you're gonna offer them something, what is it you're gonna offer them?
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things Kingston said was that, well, if you're gonna, invite people to come, you just let them know what you're doing, so they have their expectations, are realistic. That they know that it's, maybe it's presenters that are from within the club or within the province or something. That's not somebody who's flying in from Los Angeles or something. So, I mean, maybe I could,
Grass Tyson's not coming.
maybe I could ask each of you to kind of try and come up with one idea for a workshop or a presentation. Just see if you can, and 2 ideas would be fine too.
Posted as recently as.
I think that's very reasonable.
Well, just to get, and then we can, I think we know who's here today.
You wanna put a timeline on it? The reason I'm saying timeline, because the suggestions is.
I know, it's summer's coming.
Before it's gotta be.
Yeah.
Not going
Yeah.
soon, so.
So before the next meeting? Is that time? Is
I'm
that
sort
time
of
up?
next 2 weeks.
Okay,
Yeah,
next 2
next
weeks.
2 weeks is fine, yeah. Because you're not gonna spend a month thinking about it. So, yeah, if you could take a few minutes to think about, well, what might be interesting, or, because we did a lot of things in the past. And time's gone by, and I've certainly forgotten what those skills were. So we'd be happy to hear any ideas that you have, and we would, I guess we can, and we'll share everything that we have, that we received and come up with ourselves. Some loose suggestions there at the beginning. I like the idea of focusing on visual observing, and we'll, coming out in terms of a theme, and we're playing with that. I don't know whether Lisa knows that I'm gonna ask her for another T-shirt idea.
Once we have a theme.
Once we have a theme. Yes.
I've never been to this event before. I'm looking over the list here. I noticed that there's nothing like during the day, like say about solar astronomy, demonstration of that.
Oh, no, there is.
There is.
Oh, there is? I missed it somehow.
It's right after breakfast.
Typically in the morning,
Saturday.
telescope tours and solar observing.
Oh, there.
That's, yeah,
Missed it.
so
Okay,
it's,
never mind then.
yeah, no, it is, it's always, It's always of interest.
All day in
Same
field.
as when we do stuff at Keji, there's usually
Okay.
solar scope set up for the public to
I've
see.
never really heavily gotten into that myself, so it would be interesting.
Well, yeah, it is very.
The cells for solar observing time would be a good time to do the collimation time too, right? 'Cause incorporate that all into when people are just
Yeah.
freewheeling around the field. A couple of laser collimators walking around, it's just
Telescope medics.
do it all as part of that time period, right? It's all wrapped into one, so multiple things happening on the field at the same time.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did that a few, no, I remember we had one person, I think Dave Chapman was doing culminating on one end of the field and someone else was showing how to use binoculars and there was someone, doing clean, there was 3 or 4 things going on and you could just sort of circle around, they're all sort of stationed in different parts. But yeah, that would work better, rather than having separate times.
And if you do have an idea and you think, hey, this is good, if you can think of somebody who might be a good person to do that, present it or provide it. And I'm just looking for ideas, but I wasn't taking photos or anything. Then that would be a good thing too, because we can chat or bribe or blackmail or whatever it is, and see if we can get some interest.
Yeah, all good.
I mean, I think there's one of Jupiter, I think, gets occulted on the 22nd by one of the moons. I think
22nd of what?
of August. I think so. It's in the handbook.
Okay.
And Pat Kelly knows a lot.
All of Shakespeare's work are in the dictionary too.
I'm sorry?
I said all of Shakespeare's work are in the dictionary too.
Yes. Yes, well, the only thing is that there's an old trick, which is like what the lawyers do, which is don't ask a question that you don't know the answer to. Anyway, but I was just thinking Pat Kelly is and he's spoken, I think, before about Jupiter.
Yeah, because I remember he did that when I was chairing it, because I remember saying, by Joe, that was a good talk. I remember that one.
Anyway, I'd like to thank you, everybody, for staying on here this afternoon.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And it's good. We've collected a few ideas and we'll get going and we'll share what we do. Yes. Yeah, if you'd like to be involved to some degree, can be a little, can be a lot. Nova East isn't a huge thing to kind of organize, and we have a roadmap of what needs to be done. But it's this stage of the game, which is coming up with some ideas, presentations, workshops. That takes input. The physically putting it on the field, that's not too hard. So we appreciate anyone who could participate a little bit. Doesn't have to be a whole lot.
Yeah, just let Chris Gary or I know if you're interested.
Yeah.
And any suggestions you have, let any one of us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna stop it.
Thanks, Drew. Thanks, everyone.